Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well, and as usual that you're all having a great day. This must be said, the opinions expressed in this video are my own and should not under any circumstances be taken as legal, tax and or investment advice. And now that that is over, this is obviously a hot topic right now. We had the idea before that in the cryptocurrency market, the direct correlation that the rest of the cryptocurrency market has to Bitcoin's price would have sometime in 2018 completely faltered, would have been separated, as this is still a huge topic of discussion. 2018, it was believed, I'll put it that way, at the beginning of this year, that the cryptocurrency market would have continued to go higher, prices would have continued to skyrocket, and therefore we would have seen a separation of prices between all the other cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. But as things have turned out, this entire year, prices have more or less slid down. There hasn't really been a period where prices were going up for an extended period of time, where we broke out or are past the $20,000 mark that we had before for Bitcoin. So now the common conversation that we have floating around in the cryptocurrency space is exactly how low can Bitcoin go. At the beginning of this year, when Bitcoin was around, it was 18,000, somewhere around there, from after falling a tiny bit from the 20,000, we had people calling for a Bitcoin price bottom at 12,000. And then at 10,000, people said that it wouldn't go lower than 8,700 because this was I believe, the mining cost at the time to make one Bitcoin. And then we had information that 6,500 was definitely the bottom. And then we had a 5,500, and then we had around a 4,200. And now where Bitcoin is right now, the speculation lies that anybody's guess is kind of a correct answer. I know that sounds a bit stupid, but the analysts who we have floating out there, I decided to, I guess, kind of not really put everything into perspective, but kind of just give like a one-of video to kind of give or show exactly what everyone seems to be coming to the conclusion of. Simply because at some point, you have to, Bitcoin will eventually hit a number that will be the bottom in price. Will it be 0? Will it be 1 cent? Will it be 5 cents? At some point, it has to go low enough, or rather, it will go low enough that people will start to buy dramatically into the market because they realize, or they think collectively, that the price is far too low. So without further ado, I'm going to obviously read through some stuff, and I will give you my own personal opinion. This is why I said at the beginning of the video, this is not financial advice. These are my own opinions based off of the information that I have gathered and that I am also sharing with all of you. It says bull runs are actually stirred and triggered by hope, sentiment, and future perspective. In other words, tomorrow looks good, so let us buy today. In most cases, healthy growth catches up. Bull runs are sweet and fun, but they are definitely not forever. This is because of another fact known as today's reality. Bear markets are not based on the future, unlike the bull. It is based on today's woes. All hell is breaking loose today, and there is panic. The number one problem of the world financial markets and why we have economic cycles. People buy the future and sell the present. In case you don't know, people only buy into companies doing well today because they believe that the trend will continue into the near future. But the smart ones know better. They buy the rumor and sell the news. Evident here, it would have been good, but we have these things called stock options and, more importantly, short selling. When the valuation of a financial entity goes south, people make money from its decline through short selling. Short selling, for those who don't know, is pretty much betting against something. So you can, this is why when you hear that the stock market has crashed, we have these situations where people are like, I still made tons of money. And we hear about these people who made 50 million as the stock market was crashing. And a lot of people are like, how did they do this? Another way of doing it on the other side of the coin is that you can bet against the market going up and say, no, the market's going to go down. And therefore you make money if the market does go down. It's called short selling. Short selling is only possible in the regulated financial market. You can't go to the market and short an apple fruit. 2008 was pumped up as the year that institutional money was going to enter the cryptocurrency market. And the truth is that it did some way enter, but not the way that we thought that it actually would. From the effect on the market, it seems kind of clear that at least some point did short the market heavily. I'll get into all this in a second. This is the end of 2018, as we all know. Any fund that declared that they made profits in fiat from crypto was obviously shorting or betting against the market. This means that big money affects the market. The market cap is currently less than 200 billion for the entire cryptocurrency market. The active daily volume is less than 10 billion, I believe, for Bitcoin. Institutional investors often have massive volumes that swallow up everything in the real world. Most of them coming in 2019 might not be cheerful, good news enthusiasts want. So kind of working through it at the beginning of this year, even at the end of last year, around October, November. This is when we first had indications that crypto might be completely changing for the better or for worst. This is when we first got news that I believe it was the CBOE that was going to have the Bitcoin futures. And everyone was like, oh my gosh, institutional money, can't believe it. This is going to be incredible. And then we learned that the futures that we were going to have attached to the Bitcoin name were not going to be physical. They were going to, when I say physical, for those who don't know, it means like no Bitcoin was actually going to be traded back and forth. People were trading numbers on a screen, and they were essentially paid out in fiat. So what ended up happening is that as we got news about the Bitcoin ETF happening, and therefore the promise of the institutional year, which was going to be 2018, Bitcoin's price only helped to go higher and started skyrocketing. And then everyone started coming to the conclusion and realizing that the financial analysts who were out there saying that Bitcoin futures were not going to be good for the Bitcoin price were slowly vindicated, simply because we realized that these mega entities who were trading hundreds of millions of dollars in cryptocurrencies weren't actually trading cryptocurrencies at all. They were trading fiat back and forth. And then 2018 was still believed that it was going to be 2018 was promised at the beginning of this year to be something, that we couldn't begin to possibly believe what was going to happen. It was going to be so much institutional money, trillions of dollars were going to pour into the market. And this is why I was talking about before, when Bitcoin was slowly, more or less at this point, kind of going down in price, everyone was like, no, it's totally fine. The news that we had at the end of 2017 from regulators getting into the space, I would want to say the word stupidly, like everyone else, we all believed that regulators would kind of get it together. We had news from around the world that regulators had spotted cryptocurrencies, they were going to regulate it, and therefore we were like, okay, they'll have this done by the first 3 months of 2018. They'll file us into some other category. They'll make us a security. They'll make us a commodity. They'll make us so-and-so. People were scouring through the internet trying to figure out if there had been any past information about this. And this is why people started coming up with the conclusion it had to be second quarter of this year, and maybe even sometime around the summer, when they were looking at XRP. And they found the old rulings that someone else had, some other financial entity had declared that it was a currency and therefore not a security. This is why all that talk was happening, because everyone was trying to figure out if there had already been some type of a precedent for regulations, and therefore like a doorway for institutional money to feel comfortable getting into the market. 2018 has just been a year of prices lowering. I have my own ideas as to why this was happening, but the institutional money that we believed would flow into the market has, if you look back at other news stories, the money's there, but what's been happening is that this money has been coming OTC, or over the counter, and this pretty much means I don't think I have a friend who was inquiring about this the other day. OTC, for those who don't really get it, it pretty much means, imagine you go into Coinbase and you decide to buy, let's say someone is like, here's $100 million. And you go, I'm going to buy $100 million worth of Bitcoin on Coinbase right now. And you transfer the money from your bank account onto Coinbase. And however long it takes to get your money on Coinbase, you see like a little thing pop up. You have $100 million worth of Bitcoin. Yay, excited. Over the counter pretty much means you don't go through their systems. Like, to simplify it as much as possible, you buy it over the counter. You pretty much go to, imagine someone going to them as opposed to using their computer or network or whatever and saying, I want $100 million. And for the sake of argument, you hand them a briefcase in actual money, and it never actually touches their marketplace. So what we've seen, especially a couple of videos ago, people were figuring out that as the market prices have been completely going down, the OTC market has completely exploded. People have been buying millions. I want to say tens of millions. I don't want to say the word hundreds of millions in that sentence of worth of cryptocurrencies, and more so even if we're just focusing on Bitcoin for this video. And therefore the interest is there. As we know that Grayscale, we had news a couple of days ago, I think they control more than 1% of all the Bitcoin in the entire world. And they've been doing this. They've been buying up this as the prices have been going down. So the institutional money is just there. But the way that we figured was that they would go through cryptocurrency exchanges. This is why at the beginning of this year, if you can also remember, there was a huge push towards people, what's it called? Making their cryptocurrency exchanges good for institutional investors. I'm sure you all remember there was a huge time period in this year where there was just a huge discussion. How do we make things simpler for institutional investors? How can we make this more cushiony? How do we have custody services? How do we do this? How do we make sure that their buying limits are okay? How do we make sure that they are connected to our bank and that we have a proper bank and that we are verified and that they are so and so? And I remember I said I thought it was kind of weird and I felt like we had been pushed out of the market. Lo and behold, we have been. And I don't mean that we've been forced to sell. The market isn't for us anymore, regardless of what you might think. This is now a very rich person's game. Institutional money is there. And if we had seen the level of money that the institutional investors had been placing into the cryptocurrency market, during 2018, Bitcoin's price would be random number, at least over 50,000 right now. The amount of interest that we've had in the market has been completely insane. But as a result, people have pretty much found a way to also bet against I still believe that a lot of this is all coordinated or correlated, whatever word you kind of want to use in that sentence. And it pretty much comes down to with the market going down constantly for 12 months and the interest in Bitcoin going up and people buying over the counter, a lot of people have been betting against the market because they simply knew that their friends or themselves were going to be betting against the market and or buying over the counter, and therefore the normal retail investors, those are everyday normal people, would be selling off their cryptocurrencies and buying rather the retails are out of it, and the institutional investors, the rich people, would be buying over the counter, buying up as much as they possibly could as prices have been going lower. That's kind of the gist of it. It says these institutions are smart. They have the capacity to get the very best hands to manage the funds. They can't force the market they could force the market in any direction. They could make the market go up and they could make it kiss the dust. If you are a holder, you need to know this. This is very important. If you are into cryptocurrencies, and it's not for everyone. It's really not for everyone. Stocks is not for everyone. Real estate is not for everyone. These things are, you have to have a strong heart. And you have to have a very strong mind to be able to be inside of a market like this. We have gotten to the point right now where the people who should have inherited Bitcoin are no longer in control of Bitcoin, and they probably never will be again. There is a very slim chance, and I mean as slim or as thin as a strand of hair, of normal people being able to acquire 1% of all the Bitcoin in the world. This is now reserved for the very rich people. And what I find most interesting is that a lot of people keep underestimating just how smart, if you want to say that, these people are when it comes to making money. They've been very rich people have been groomed since they were kids to know exactly how money works and how to get other people out of the market that they don't want in there. They do this for stocks, they do this for bonds, they do this for every single type of thing in the financial world. And it just so happens that a lot of people who got into the cryptocurrency space were not very well versed on any type of finance, and they were very easily shaken out of the tree. They knew that by buying over the counter, they wouldn't affect the normal markets. We wouldn't be able to see the actual transaction volume that was going through. Because I told you guys before, if we had seen in any case that we had a day where $100 million worth of Bitcoin had been bought up, the market would have completely skyrocketed, because that was a huge indication. If someone this entire year or company and organization had been collecting or buying 1% of all the Bitcoin, that would have completely changed the market that we have right now. So it says, the question is then, how low can Bitcoin go? The first question is, why is it going low? He answered this, the person who wrote this in a previous post. It says, if you have seen that, you can clearly predict the answer in this next question. It says, I don't have a number to share, but I think it can go as far as it can get down until a number that will make an individual able to afford a substantial number of coins. The blog post had this inside of it, and one of the main arguments was technically it can go down as much as it needs to possibly go down. The argument inside the article was that this was actually, I think, written had to be around June or something like that, and this is when this was made. It was the cost of mining, for those who aren't looking, it's the cost of mining 1 Bitcoin based on the average electricity rate per country. The idea that we had at the beginning of this summer was that Bitcoin couldn't possibly go down lower than these numbers that you see on the screen, simply because it would no longer be profitable. And therefore, what we've had in the past is that if Bitcoin's mining profitability had been around, let's say $1,500, and it snapped around like to $1,600, the price of Bitcoin would then start to shoot back up because it just wasn't, the incentive kind of wasn't there anymore to mine, and therefore people wanted the miners to continue mining, and therefore the price of Bitcoin would go back up. So that was kind of the major gist of it, as to why or how low Bitcoin could go. Even though this article that I was just reading from is relatively new-ish, these numbers are also, I guess, completely different right now, simply because a lot of miners have been turning off their machines. We had news a couple of days ago that the around 600 to 800,000 miners across the world had shut off their computers. There's another article that I saw earlier. It said since as more miners have been continuously shutting off their mining equipment as the prices of Bitcoin have been going lower, it's now the equivalent of around 1.4 million miners, but they were also calculating it as far as like less powerful miners. If you kind of divvied it up, you would get the number where it kind of showed you that the equivalent of 1.4 million miners around the world have turned off their equipment. And so he goes on to say, someone mentioned on Twitter that Bitcoin wasn't going to zero because he will make the order to buy all Bitcoin available at 1 cent. Another said he will outbid that by a couple of cents. So it says no, so Bitcoin is not going to go to zero. All those saying it are messing with people's minds to lose hope for future prospects. Don't be surprised if these same people come a few years to talk about why the world needs Bitcoin. Remember, and I'll go backwards, or rather frontwards. No, Bitcoin is not ever going to zero. I told you guys before, the only way that Bitcoin would ever go to zero is if the entire blockchain was completely destroyed. And even then, we would have a number of people who are true believers in Bitcoin who would make sure to rebuild the blockchain stronger than they did before. And the idea that it would go to zero, like there are at least 15 people watching this right now who would raise their hands, and I would say, if Bitcoin went to 2 cents, would you buy it? If it went to 55 cents, would you buy it? If it went to $300, how many of you would try to empty out your bank account to buy an entire Bitcoin, or multiple Bitcoin for that matter? The idea of it going to zero is something that a lot of people have been using as a scare tactics. That guy, Nouriel Roubini, he's one of the main ones. To think that a worldwide payment system, especially something as popular as Bitcoin, even other cryptocurrencies, could potentially go to zero is kind of complete nonsense. I'm not exactly sure where people are. I mean, everyone tries to have their own thing, and especially it says don't be surprised if these same people come in a few years to talk about why the world needs Bitcoin. We've already seen this before since around 2012. This is why I love the internet, because you can find out anything on there. You can go back and look at all the old articles, and so many of the major players who are in cryptocurrencies right now who talk about that they see a very bright future for cryptocurrencies and why they think cryptocurrencies is going to be taking over the world and so and so and so, while they're developing blockchain and having their own this and their own platforms and stuff like that. These were the same people who all said that cryptocurrencies were going to die. They were not going to be around. A lot of them said that by 2016, these things would all be at zero. There were no use cases for them. Why would anyone in the world want to use digital currency when they have fiat? Yes, this was actual arguments a couple of years ago. People were saying that people trust the fiat currencies of the world. They know that they are backed by their loving governments, and therefore people would continue using them, and there is no usage for any cryptocurrencies out there. So I guess these are the, first of all, number-wise, these are the numbers that were quoted for quite some time, and then the idea was that Bitcoin could never go lower than this. And also inside of that article, which I don't have a tab open for right now, he was saying that what's happening pretty much was kind of what we read around here in the argument for why it's going so low, is that people are continuously selling off, and those are everyday normal people. They're selling off because they don't understand whether it be market cycles, whether it be exactly what's happening. And this is why I made that other video where I was kind of showing, all the money that was in cryptocurrency and that was flowing into cryptocurrency. A large amount of people, this is why it's always important to do your own research. A large amount of people just don't care to read around. I think fear is a very strong thing. If you hear constantly someone telling you that prices are going to hit zero, you eventually believe it. If you have friends who are telling you that you're crazy or you're paranoid or no one's ever going to use this digital money, what's the point of it? Especially if they haven't been reading or don't want to read or have no interest in the cryptocurrency space. Eventually, at some point, the fear will rush over you and you will start to believe exactly what they are telling you. That was the point of the why the sell-off is continuing, and why the lower that it goes, the more institutions are actually going to perk their ears up and start getting into it. You would think the opposite. You would think that as prices continue to get lower, that institutions would, further back away from it and say that this was definitely a bubble. At this point, we know it was a bubble. We know that it was created mainly on hype. But now that that bubble has just about burst, the big money is now figuring out how they can profit from it. If we collectively got it to 20,000 before, and the prices do essentially continue to fall, how can they then make their millions off of it? Owning 1% of Bitcoin, and if we get to a Bitcoin price of 20,000 again, or even to 50,000 per Bitcoin, that's a lot of money to be made. So when it comes to numbers, as you see right now, at least at the time of me making this video, Bitcoin is around $3,345. It's obviously fluctuating back and forth every couple of seconds, but this is typically the number that we're kind of seeing at the moment. When we were around even like $5,000-$6,000 Bitcoin, there were a lot of people talking about that they believed that Bitcoin was actually headed for these numbers, and people said that's completely ridiculous. There's no way that Bitcoin is ever going to fall down this low again. It simply doesn't make any sense, and people were saying that because of these numbers. Before, all the time in the past, that is very expensive. $16,000 to make a Bitcoin. Before in the past, we've seen that if we ever got near a lower price and it was unprofitable at that point to then mine cryptocurrencies, there was always something that kind of perked the market up. I guess no one really figured out the exact thing, or maybe it just was a collective mindset from the people all around the world, is that, it's not profitable for them, and therefore this is the lowest that it's going to go, and therefore we should start buying into the market because the price will then only go back up because you buy because you think that everyone else is going to buy before you. That's kind of what it is. Like, you buy early enough, like if theoretically, if Bitcoin should fall to $100 or is nearing $100, even gets anywhere close to $100, people will start buying into the market simply because of the fear that someone else will get that good price before them. And this is kind of the entire argument of the Bitcoin price bottoming, and this is what they mean. Like, what's the lowest that it'll go before people go completely insane and they're like, oh my gosh, this can't possibly go any lower. Like, it just won't go any lower than this. 3,500 was a key level for us for quite some time. We passed that about a day or two ago, and people have been talking about it ever since. That Bitcoin has passed the $3,500 mark. 3,000 is obviously next. There doesn't seem to be a major amount of price support or buy support at the moment for Bitcoin's price, and therefore this is where people are kind of estimating. The lowest that I've seen, at least at the moment, has been a Bitcoin price of around $1,500. And I'll see if it's I don't remember where exactly it was. So it kind of follows somewhere inside here. So the idea is right now is that people have been, I want to say, like, recalibrating their charts, if you kind of will, to kind of say exactly how low that Bitcoin could go. And I'll give it to you, like, from a logical standpoint. When you listen to analysts on television and stuff like that, and they talk about exactly how low it's going to go, a lot of people thought that this was impossible. And now, obviously, that we're here, the idea is that at the beginning of 2017, Bitcoin was around $900. And to have a Bitcoin price of around $3,000 still gives us a 300% return. Therefore, that's still incredibly healthy, because if you were in any other type of market inside the entire world, getting like 19% of a return would be astronomically crazy, awesome, amazing, super cool. And just having a 300% on an asset that isn't widely distributed across the world, or not a lot of people are actually in the marketplace, is still completely wonderful and healthy. And then you get to the other side of that, where people are talking about, even if Bitcoin does go back down to $1,500, in theory, one could say that it's still completely fine, because there's still a 50% increase on something that, once again, is not widely distributed across the entire world and that not many people are into. The idea is that right now is that we have potentially, the numbers vary, anywhere from 30 to 50 or 50 to 100 million people around the world who are into cryptocurrencies, with obviously a fraction of that going towards Bitcoin. So therefore, in the traditional markets, which could potentially have hundreds of millions of people, if not, you want to say 2 billion people, this also includes people who have 401ks and stock options through their job and stuff like that, who have some type of exposure to the traditional financial markets. Therefore, this is how many people are in that market. It's a lot stabler, if you kind of want to say it, and therefore more people inside of it. So they crash back down to 1,500. while terrifying in number, could still then, in theory, be a healthy price for an asset that is not widely used around the world. This is kind of the idea behind it. So this is kind of the breakdown that we're kind of getting right now. It says, I think, when trying to predict the future price of Bitcoin, it's impossible to do so without first looking at its past. No matter how it's examined, the cyclical nature or the cycle of the nature of Bitcoin's price actions can't be ignored, especially when considering its notorious boom and bust cycles. If the latest plunge below the long-lasting support level of 6,000 and an explosive rally to nearly 20,000 is any indication, it's clear that the history's repeating trend has yet to cease. If the cyclical nature of Bitcoin is indeed alive and well, then in all likelihood the current bubble will reach a similar conclusion as was the case with the past bubbles. For those who haven't been into cryptocurrency for quite a long time, this is, I want to say, normal. And I know it sounds completely insane. There's not a lot of liquidity in the market. For those who don't know, liquidity pretty much meaning like the amount of money flowing through the system at any given time is actually not a clear representation of what you see like for the market cap. When you see the coin's market cap says that it's $200 billion, there's not currently $200 billion floating through that asset at any given time. It's believed that only 10% of that is actually flowing through it. So the actual money that we see, and a lot of times, I mean, not even getting into like what cryptocurrency exchanges have been doing, but we've seen these before. These are very common. There was a graph that I had in one of my last videos talking about the actual price of Bitcoin going down, and sometimes we've seen like drops of like 96% in price, drops of 80%, drops of 86%, somewhere around those numbers. This has happened before, and I told you guys, and it's very interesting because you think, or one would assume, that being in the cryptocurrency space, we would be almost immune to some of these things, like as far as like the patterns and how the boom and bust cycles go, and having a bubble and people believing that they're not a bubble. It's kind of sad. The same exact things happen in the crypto and the traditional financial markets, and people never believe the exact same things. Humans are, we repeat the same things over and over. This is why we get the phrase history always repeats itself, because we keep doing the exact same things expecting a different outcome. Lo and behold, it's always the same. So this is why, logically, when you see a lot of the institutions and stuff getting into the cryptocurrency space, it's because they've been looking at these patterns that a lot of other people in cryptocurrency just haven't really been paying attention to. These people who've been into finance for, say, over 100 years, anyway, over 70, 80, 60 years, somewhere around that time frame, they know these patterns. They know how they repeat. If you look at we had something a couple months ago where someone had aligned the stock market next to the gold price and next to the cryptocurrency prices, and it was really sad because they follow the exact same patterns. It was the same horrible, sad, tragic periods, and then the same euphoric cycles over and over and over. And it's just kind of the way that we deal with things, and what we're apparently going through right now is the end, or what people are saying is the end of a cycle, and therefore, when it starts boosting itself back up, this is the beginning of the new euphoric cycle that people once again will think can never end until we actually have another bubble popping. It says this line of thought is potentially revealing, since the breakdown of several Bitcoin bubbles have followed an opposite but equal theme. In other words, Bitcoin price tends to consolidate in a specific pattern when in a bubble state, which eventually breaks down in the opposite direction to a near identical distance as the height of the pattern. Using this logic, a bottom for the current bear market can be extrapolated as explored below. There was something that I had to say around here, and I don't remember exactly what it was anymore. I remember. Anyway, it's not that important. They talk about the triangle breakdowns, and what's important here is the actual graph. And I know a lot of people can't see that, so I made sure to blow it up over here. For those who remember a couple of months ago, this was the idea of what the bottom was. I remember, for those who were here, and I remember it was a very ridiculous time, Bitcoin's price was trending completely sideways, and it was one of the most annoying things in the entire world, especially when we had fluctuations going up and down. And it's kind of weird, and I am sure that there are books on this, but I mean, like, further study actually has to be done. The fact that this is constantly happening, like you see this line, this white line right here, no matter what we do, no matter where we go, no matter what the cycles are, humans constantly follow the same exact trends over and over and over. And the fact that it's like mathematically solved is kind of weird. Anyway, the point is, where we are right now, or rather where we were then, when Bitcoin was at 5840. Bitcoin's price was trending sideways, and this is when we had that kind of interesting time where we were at around 6,000 per Bitcoin, and the indication was, and I'll kind of break it down for you, the idea was that if we stayed around 6,000 and we got around to this point, you either have to break down, which we did, or you have to break up. A lot of people were saying that they thought that Bitcoin's price was too high at this level, because what tends to happen is that during a bust cycle where prices are going completely down, is that obviously the lowest point that you get to, if this was right here, when we had another boom cycle and prices went up, typically what we've seen before in the past for Bitcoin's price has normally, after a bust cycle, been a 20 to 40x in price. Now, if you do 60,000, rather 6,000 per Bitcoin times 10, that's 60,000. Another 2, that's 120,000. People were saying that they thought that it would be kind of weird if we had reached 20,000. A couple months later, we hit couple months later, we hit 6,000, and then we ended up hitting 120,000 by the middle of 2019. People said they thought that that would be the indication of another bubble, and that would be extremely unhealthy for the cryptocurrency space. So what ended up happening is that people said that there wasn't enough buy support. We ended up crashing down, and now around this pattern, somewhere around this time is when people said that we were showing that the market was, I think they said it was still overbought or something like that. Like we hadn't actually come down completely. So if you think back to exactly what we were just talking about before, I think it was, nope, this one right here. It says 3K ahead. And this one is talking about the $1,500 mark. They rounded off pretty much the levels that they think, or analysts are saying that we are going to bottom, or as low as Bitcoin could possibly get, is the 2676. They rounded it up to 3,000 because 3,000 sounds a lot nicer than Bitcoin bottoming at 2676. And the other one is 1725, and once again a round number. 1,500 sounds a lot more appealing, or I mean mathematical wise, to that number. So where we are right now, people are saying, this is once again their opinion, not mine. People are saying that Bitcoin is possibly going to stop falling at around the 3,000 level, give or take a few percent. When you listen to podcasts and stuff like that, or people who are just analysts and stuff like that, I found it interesting around this time frame. The answers were kind of all over the place. This is what I said at the beginning of the video. It's interesting how everyone has seemingly come together on the math of everything. People thought that we were at the bottom here, or around here, because we kept on hitting this one level over and over and over and over and over. This was the bottom for quite some time. There just wasn't enough support in there before we've fallen down. Now the answer, or the question is, how low are we going to go? People are saying that 3,000 is the limit, and that at some point we're going to shoot back up. I'm actually not holding my breath for that. I feel like 1,500 is probably a lot more believable, and I'll give you the reason why. It comes down to, I feel like when we have indication or actual news and validity is not the word. When we have proof and we know that there are institutions who are buying up 1% of all the Bitcoin in the entire world since prices have been going down, they, in all honesty, don't care about us. They don't care about if we have families that we have to feed, if we are trying to buy a new condo, a new Lambo, a new anything. Their entire game is how low can we get the price of Bitcoin before it shoots back up. If even just Grayscale has been accumulating Bitcoin since here to here, 1% of all the Bitcoin, imagine how much more they would start accumulating if we hit 1,500 per coin. It kind of is just the way that I kind of think of things. I still am a long-term holder, if you kind of want to say it that way. I believe in the future prospects of the cryptocurrency space. Maybe not for all cryptocurrencies, but as of right now, I've told you guys before, I'm almost certain the fact that there's so much attention around Bitcoin, I don't think Bitcoin is going to go anywhere. Other people may not believe in what I say, but I think that we're going to have, or be forced to have, for those who don't really want this, there isn't just going to be one coin, at least for right now. Bitcoin may eventually be the number one mega super ultra coin that we all have to use in our lives. But over the next 5 years, there's going to be multiple coins that are going to be in the game. But as of right now, I think Bitcoin's name is far too big. There was also that other article, and it was saying that every single day that Bitcoin, every 24-hour period that Bitcoin does not die, Bitcoin becomes stronger because the network becomes stronger, the blockchain becomes larger. And, right. the overall point is that I still believe, and I am of the mindset, they don't care if Bitcoin is at 58. I don't think they even care if it's at 3,000 or even if it's at 15. I think if they could logically get Bitcoin down to $800, I think they would definitely do it. Who knows if the rest of the world is also going to agree with that number, as in, if they push it down that low. As of right now, we have a lot of cryptocurrency miners around the world who have shut off their computers. There has to logically be a wait, that's too low number. Like, you can't, Bitcoin won't hit $1. I would sell my family's stuff just to get more money to buy as much Bitcoin as possible. Like, a $1 Bitcoin just doesn't really logically make any sense, regardless of what Nouriel Roubini says about anything. So that's kind of the idea of why people believe these numbers, the 3,000 rounded and the 1,500 rounded, as far as, how it could potentially go. Keeping in mind, and when you listen to analysts and stuff like that, it kind of comes down to the fact that they have been in crypto for so long, or Bitcoin for so long, that they also accumulated. These people got into Bitcoin when it was around like $10. So even it falling down to 1,500 is no big skin off their back. Is that a saying? It rolls off their back. They don't really have a very big problem with prices kind of going that low. To kind of finish this off and give you like a final thought. Where is it? The co-founder of Hong Kong-based crypto exchange known as BTCC says that if history repeats itself, Bitcoin will finally find a bottom next month at about $2,500. After that, Lee says a path towards Bitcoin reaching $333,333 by the end of 2021. Here's the actual tweet of it. Not going to really read through it because you can see the tweet right there. Lee is basing his math on the price of Bitcoin back in December of 2013, when Bitcoin hit an all-time high of about $1,200. Over the course of the following 13 months, Bitcoin plummeted by about 87.5%. Like I said, we've seen this before, bottoming out at around $150 in January of 2015. From then on, Bitcoin gained traction and skyrocketed to a high of nearly $20,000 in December of 2017. An 87.5% drop from 20,000 plus Bitcoin at 2,500. So past his prologue, Bitcoin, which is currently trading at 33 so-and-so at the time of writing, has further to slide. If you're looking for more predictions, check out Changpeng Zhao, who also kind of said the exact same thing. This is why I said I find it very interesting that everyone had their own interesting numbers. I don't think it was Bobby Lee. I think it was Tom Lee, who said that he was expecting Bitcoin to hit 50,000 by the end of this year, and everyone has kind of been reframing their prices as to what they think Bitcoin is going to end up as at the end of this year. We still have the opportunity, which I, at this point, don't think is going to happen. This is just me, with people saying that they think that Bitcoin is still going to have a rally by the end of this year to around 15,000, which I think would be great for everybody. It would be a nice holiday gift. If it's actually going to happen, I'm not really holding my breath. If anything, once again, not financial advice. If you are a true believer in Bitcoin, and I mean a true believer in the future prospects of where cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin are going to go, this is probably one of the greatest, accumulation periods that we will probably have over the next couple of years. I personally, my own personal opinion, because I've done my own research and I have my own brain, I'm actually waiting for around a $2,700 Bitcoin. That's just me personally. I think we're very close to hitting 3,000. I give it by the, I kind of want to say the end of this week. I kind of am aiming for that time frame. I'm expecting, we always have some type of like really ridiculous news where nothing negative happens and you think that it shouldn't affect Bitcoin, but Bitcoin ends up falling down further. I think once we hit around 2,700, I may look to start to get into the market as well. For sake of argument, Bobby Lee, what he's pretty much said is that he thinks that it'll hit 333,000 in 2021, and then by 2023, the bubble will have started crashing at this point, and we will hit another $41,000 Bitcoin. This is kind of the way I see it as well. I told you guys before, the next bull run, just even based on normal numbers, like nothing even astronomically crazy, I told you I think $100,000 Bitcoin is completely possible. as is a $120,000 to $150,000 Bitcoin. I know it sounds insane, but if you pay attention to the actual money that's in the cryptocurrency space, this isn't child's play anymore. This isn't for normal people who are trying to get up Bitcoin's price to $7,000. When you have people buying up 1% of all the Bitcoin in the world, they mean business. We are entering the cusp of what could potentially be $1 trillion market, and therefore there's very big money to be made. I'm personally aiming for a $120,000 Bitcoin, whether we're going to hit 333,000 or $250,000 like Mike Novogratz has been saying is whatever. If we hit those numbers, that's absolutely fantastic. But when we end up hitting around $120,000, that's when I'm going to be paying attention a bit more to people talking about bubbles and stuff like that. And I told you guys before, I think if we do end up hitting 120,000 and that ends up being kind of the high, I could definitely see a 15, 20,000 Bitcoin coming again into play. But once again, if you are in it for the long term, there's a huge difference between buying into a $20,000 Bitcoin and buying into a $2,500 Bitcoin. If everyone is calling for this crazy massive bottom, at some point the prices will, at some point, my opinion, shoot back up. I'm not going to wait for this number. That's just kind of how I do it. I'm an accumulator. I don't sell. I only buy. I only hold. I'm in it for the long term. And yeah, I think that's definitely going to do it for this video. I thought I'd try and at least put some stuff into perspective. There's always so much stuff happening around the cryptocurrency space, and I try to find not appropriate times to make videos, but kind of just like, I don't know, there's not enough hours in the day. I really wish there were. I keep telling all my friends I sometimes make like 2, 3, sometimes like 4 videos in a day just because there's always so much happening in the cryptocurrency space. But a lot of times I do have to go outside and have to go grocery shopping. I have to do other things with my friends. If I was physically able, I would probably just make videos all day. I know it sounds a bit crazy. Crypto is pretty much my life right now. Yeah. Hope you all enjoyed. Hope you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, and or evening, wherever you are. Wherever you might be, I hope it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you once again for watching and or listening. I do appreciate all of your support. I know times are grim. I know they seem a bit down right now. I'm still waiting sorry, my leg was hurting. Sorry, I had to, waiting for the beginning of 2019. I think big things are definitely coming. And I think a lot of what 2018 has been necessary as far as like building up infrastructure. And I think the big players who are getting into the game, I can only imagine, or one would assume, that this entire time they've been gearing up for what they plan on doing with the cryptocurrency space. And exactly, when you fill up your coffers, when you buy as much cryptocurrencies as these over-the-counterers have been buying, it's clear that they plan on at some point plan on doing something to move the market up. Like, you don't spend $100 million buying up cryptocurrency and just kind of let it sit there by itself without trying to make profit from it. Anyway, I already said my goodbyes. I'm still talking. All right, everyone. Thank you once again, and I'll talk to you all soon. See you.